just kept moving and shaking. Went to work for a company called Cadillac Jack that made, if you've ever been to Dave and Buster's or you've been in a bowling alley anywhere and seen
Mm-hmm.
all the games that the kids play, we made those games, and we also made slot machines. So
See,
yeah,
thank a machinist. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't be having games at Chuck E. Cheese if it
That's
wasn't
it.
for machinists like Mark.
If it
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
for
exactly
Mark, we
right.
would have all had a terrible childhood. I just want the audience to absorb
Can I blame
that.
you for the money I've lost on slots too?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that and all
Blame
the
a
alcohol.
machinist?
Well,
Right.
and think about it too. You go to Dave and Buster's and all the alcohol that the guys drink, because you play better, you play the machines better if you drink more.
Yeah.
So
Right,
Sure.
of course. Of course.
We got a guest here today, guys, and I'm super happy to have him. Mark Christopher from DN Solutions. What's your title there, Mark?
So I am a proposal engineer
Okay.
for DN and their face of the company in the Americas.
Okay, that's awesome. That's a lot of pressure, being the face of a
It's
fast-growing machine tool company.
yeah, it is and it isn't. I like to tell people that I was voluntold I was going to do this job, and I've enjoyed it. It's got a little bit of pressure to it, but it's enjoyable. I've been in the industry so long; it's kind of a natural thing. I enjoy where the industry's going, where it's been, and so I enjoy talking to people, especially like you guys. You guys are the real rock stars. I enjoy talking to you guys.
Oh, that's awesome. Disagree. I think we all disagree that
The shop
we're
owners are the real rock
yeah.
stars.
Yeah, this
Well,
is true.
Mike's a shop
okay.
owner.
So I'm a rock
Yeah.
star.
Yeah, Mike, in both camps, you're the
Right.
rock star.
I'm just a shop owner that's trying to make parts for other shops. I'm not actually doing the real contract manufacturing work anymore. But hey, we're all part of the equation, right? We got
Absolutely.
the machine builder, we got the systems and software expert, we got a job shop, and whatever I do, try to make the machines work right with the peripherals. So, Mark, you said you've been in the industry for a long time, and if we could take a step back to like the beginning, give us your origins. How did you get
Sure.
into this world?
Completely by accident. Well, sorta. I didn't cut it in college, first year of college. I don't want to say I flunked out, but let's just say the GPA was enough for mom and dad to tell me I was coming home. How about that? My dad is a master mechanic by trade, and he when I didn't make it in college, he said, you need to think about a skill because you're going to need to make some money because your mom and I are not going to keep paying for you. So, here in Georgia where I live, you can go to tech school for completely free. No cost you $0. As long as you maintain I think it's a C average. You can go for free. At the time that I went, it was a B average. So, first semester I had to get my grades up, but actually a great testament to the machine tool industry. I was able to go to work for a shop that paid for my tuition the first year until I got my grades back up, and then the state paid for my education. But went to tech school. Basically, did I'm going to date myself here, but it's one of those things like what color is your parachute to figure out what you're good at or how your brain works. And they said, we think you'd probably be good at like machining or CNC machining. And my dad at the time, where he worked, they had a machine shop, and he said, yeah, they've got these things called CNC machines, and they make this stuff automatically. I was like, oh, this is cool. I love the easy button. You just make it automatically. I wish it was that simple. But long story short, went to technical school, graduated, went straight. I was working for a machine shop at the time, and then right as I was graduating from tech school, one of the employers really close to my home approached me at school and said, "Would you be interested in a programming job?" And I said, "Sure." And it was they had two Fadal CNC machines, and but it was just me and the owner, and I had to grow up really fast, and he had me programming, setting my own stuff up. It was great. It was a great learning experience. And then from there, worked for different shops, and then kind of graduated to I worked for Makita Power Tools as a second shift programmer for them. Um, just kept moving and shaking. Went to work for a company called Cadillac Jack that made, if you've ever been in Dave and Buster's or you've been in a bowling alley anywhere and seen
Hmm.
all the games that the kids play, we made those games, and we also made slot machines. So
See,
yeah,
thank a machinist. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't be having games at Chuck E. Cheese if it
that's
wasn't
it.
for machinists like Mark.
If it
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
for
exactly
Mark, we
right.
would have all had a terrible childhood. I want the audience to
Can I
absorb
blame
that.
you for the money I've lost on slots
Well,
too?
yeah, that and all
Blame a
the alcohol.
machinist?
Well,
Right.
and think about it too. You go to Dave and Buster's and all the alcohol that the guys drink because you play better. You play the machines better if you drink more.
Yeah.
So,
Right, of
Sure.
course. Of course.
That's
so,
awesome.
but yeah, those things were made out of like melamine and wood, and things that were made out of plastic, and we made it all. And then we also made slot machines as well for the Indian casino market. So that job was just it was that
Mm.
was really that was a great learning experience as well. But then that same recruiter, and I can say this now, but the same recruiter that recruited me for that job said, "Hey, I've got a medical device company that needs a CNC liaison for their engineering group." So basically, they had uh, at the time they had about 25 or 30 engineers from Purdue and Georgia Tech. These really smart kids is what I call them, and they had some sprinkled in experience, but they were coming up with the devices you have now for like the lancing industry for diabetes. And what they didn't have was an ability to draw molds, or they would make parts that weren't actually moldable, or they couldn't ejector pins wouldn't work where how they designed it. So they needed help to say, before they ever sent it to a machine shop to be made, they needed help to say, can we make this? And then it turned into, well, can you make a cycle tester? Could we make a cycle tester in a machine shop and then set up a PLC and cycle test our own stuff here? And I said, sure, we can do that. And then my job just took off from there. We had our own machine shop. I was farming out work to machine shops for them and saving them a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of time. Because I like to joke, we've all gotten prints in the shop and you look and you're like, what engineer drew this? So because of practicality, it needs 5 thousandths of, 5,000 plus or minus five, and they've got plus or minus 2 microns, something
Yeah,
like that.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We're like, who engineered this?
It's like
So
a
I work with
clearance
a,
hole or some sort of weight reduction
yeah,
feature,
yeah.
and they put a tolerance on it. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that was the things that I did, like, I would sit down with them and I would be like, "So why do you need plus or minus 1 thou?" And they're like, "Well, that's just what I felt like today." And I'm like, "No, that's we're gonna kill our machine shops trying to hold this." So anyway, transferred out of that they kinda folded up the engineering department, just became a distributor. Went to work, for a German company, a worldwide company, managing machine shop for 2.5 years. Um, was minding my own business and got recruited to work for what was Doosan, what's now DN Solutions, as an apps engineer, and that was 11 years ago. Actually, be 11 years in 2 weeks. So, uh, and it changed my life. Like it
Mm.
just absolutely changed my life, changed my perspective, changed how I looked at the whole CNC world, because now I was an apps engineer, going to all these different, whether it was General Motors, Lockheed Martin, or whether it was mom and pop's machine shop that was down the street, and everything in between. I was walking in there on a weekly basis, either solving a problem, training them, helping them with their processes, looking at their processes and saying, man, this is amazing. Or I'd look at their process and go, can I take an extra day with you guys and just help you? And so I got to see it all. It really, really opened my eyes to what's going on in the country, from Maine to California, from Canada to Mexico. In that 8 years of time as an apps engineer, it just was amazing. And then I transferred out of apps into proposals. It was a really great transition for me. I know our product really, really well. So if it's a mill or a pallet system for DN, and it's outside of our bread and butter configuration, it goes across my desk basically to build that proposal. Um, you know, Work with our salesmen and our dealers, and get our customers their machine on their floor as fast as they can for the best price we can, and make manufacturing go around. So that's it. I hope that was quick enough.
That's a
awesome.
worthwhile journey at this point.
It's
Yeah.
30 years. It'll be 30 years in the fall that I've been in the CNC world.
Yeah, nobody wants a sales guy, but everybody wants a problem solver. And it looks like you've built your career solving problems for customers and helping them work through how they do what they do and how they're going to make their parts and how they're going to meet their goals for their business. So
Hmm.
thank you for the whole story and how you got here. We always start with that because it's always so interesting to see kind of how our guest arrived in what we call the metalworking nation.
It is. It's a wild ride. When I look back at it, I'm just like, gosh, if you'd asked the kid that was in tech school if he thought he would have gotten to where he's at now, you just couldn't even imagine. I couldn't imagine. You couldn't have convinced me that this was possible. So
Super cool.
Hey guys, it's Nick from Making Chips, and I just wanted to tell you if you're looking to push your shop forward this year, you need to be at the DN Solutions Manufacturing Without Limits event. That's where I'll be at the DN Solutions Chicago Tech Center May 5th and 6th, and I'll be standing next to a lights out monster, a DVF 5000 with a Hennig WorkFlow feeding the beast. And they're running more than 15 other machines live on the floor, not just demos, live cutting too. Plus, you'll have expert-led seminars, automation insights, and the chance to talk directly with engineers and other manufacturers solving the exact same challenges you have. And they're making it easy. Breakfast and lunch are included both days, so you just show up and focus on learning. If you want to see what's possible for your shop, this is the place. Register now at the link in the show notes or visit dn-solutions.com. That's dn-solutions.com.
Mark, you said something in there, maybe a good segue in. You said you got to see everything that's happening in the world.
Yep.
So what's happening in the world? Where are we going?
you know, uh, a lot of good things. I think I get to talk to people a lot. There's a lot of good things happening. So if I had to just put it in a nutshell, um, uh, manufacturing in the United States is not only is it coming back, it's back. And the proof is in the pudding. There's especially for the defense market, gas and oil market. Our aerospace market is just off the chain. That's just a crazy, crazy market. And defense or firearms is always hot, but it's going in a great direction. The thing that we always talk about and we could spend hours upon hours talking about is, everybody needs good people.
Mhm.
Everybody needs and wants the best. They want what they need, and it's a crisis in a lot of ways, but it's also an opportunity. That's what I like to say is, I tell people, especially when I go in somebody's shop, I'll talk to operators or a guy that's just programming a 3-axis mill, and you could, I, I I literally can kind of feel it out a little bit that they think this is all they're going to be able to do their whole life, and I try to tell them, hey, look, there is a world outside those doors that is you can take what you're doing right here and like literally change a market. Like it's
Mhm.
possible. So that's what I see happen. And I didn't even mention, but automation too, like automation, robots, pallet systems. That is part of the answer of not having all the magical unicorn machinists out there. So it's part of the answer.
I think every shop owner out there knows that automation is going to be a key part of their success. But
Sure.
oftentimes, those that haven't really done it yet, it's a big step to take. It's often a big cash investment. There's a lot of complexities that obviously go around with doing it well. I know back in my shop days, we bought a 3 spindle Toyota pallet system with 25 pallets on linear pool. And
Hmm.
it took us a while to figure that out. And I would argue we never got great at it. So, how does a shop that wants to be a high performing shop really justify those investments and think about how to move into it in a successful way?
Sure. I mean, I think you said a key part of it is it's the fear of taking the jump, right? Because it's a whole nother. You're putting yourself into a whole nother category when you go the automation route, and quite frankly, it breaks the mold of the traditional thinking of a machine shop, right? I think a lot of people think that automation is for corporations. Your General Motors, your Kias, your mass producers. Um, but the market has changed so much where I heard this. I was down at one of our customers last week in Florida. He said something that really caught my attention. He said, we've been running this same job for 5 years, and the quantity started out at 100. He goes, they needed 100 a month. He goes, now that quantity is at 2,000 a month. He's like, and I
Wow.
don't even know what happened. They just keep asking for it. And I think that statement right there is where a lot of shops find themselves today, is where the demand is up, but what do I do with it? How do I meet it? Do I add a shift? Well, same guy was complaining, I can't find somebody good on second shift. Um, so so I think, to answer your question, the the leap of faith has to be there, right? But especially at DN Solutions, we have software that we can basically take your job. If you know what quantities they are, if you know what cycle time it is, if you don't know what cycle time it is, we can help you figure that out. But if you know the cycle time, the quantities you need, we can look at all of our different pallet systems and say, I can run the numbers and say, you need a linear pallet system that's got 12 pallets on it, or I can say you don't really need a 12 pallet system. That's not going to make sense for your quantities. Let's just do a 5-axis machine with a 4 pallet system or an 8 pallet system. So we have an ability to look at what your throughput is, look what your cycle times are, and figure out what do you need, what makes the most sense. Um, and I know from our standpoint, I'm never going to try and sell customers something that they're not going to need. Why? Because all they're going to do is become pissed off at DN Solutions for selling me something that makes no sense money wise, right?
Hmm.
Um, so the return on the investment has to make sense, because it is an investment. It really is. But I also tell customers too, when you put this pallet system on your floor, that job that comes in and you've turned it down for the last 2 years, or you've turned it down because the quantity's too high. Now you're going to look up and say, you know what? With our cycle times, with our fixturing, with our pallet system, we can do this. So I think that's where you have to ask yourself, do we have the demand, or have I been turning down jobs that I just knew I couldn't produce, but with a pallet system or with a robot or with some type of automation, I could do it.
Hmm. Yeah, Mark, me and Paul and Mike were all talking about this post I made last week, and a common objection that I hear from like your dealers, like whether it be the Ellison guys or in this case it was Max from 21st Century. You probably know him. He's a big personality, right?
I've known Max since I worked at Doosan. He used to
Yeah,
work in our warehouse at Doosan. So go ahead.
he's a gem. I
Great
love
guy.
that guy.
Yep.
Um, but it's like, all right, so I don't know, list price for a DVF is, I don't know, in the 300,000, maybe 400,000 ish
Yep.
for the 5-axis mill, and then it's like, okay, automation, like ours is right around 200K, and then others can go up from there, and it's like, man, for that much investment, like I'm close to a second machine. Why wouldn't I just buy a second machine?
Sure.
And my post was all like, well, does it come with a nocturnal machinist who's going to work for free all night?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
'Cause- because
Yep.
that's really the thing. And then we have a different show in the Making Chips group called Lights Out. It's all about automation topics. And one of our guests was talking about a term that he kind of made up called lights in manufacturing, where you're in the shop and you're running lights out. You're in the shop, but you're running unattended,
Hmm.
meaning you're not positioning your operators as doormen who just open and close doors and reload parts and hit cycle start. They're they're working ahead of their machine. Their machine never stops, and they're doing other higher leverage tasks.
Yep.
And I think that's part of where, like, sometimes people in the machine tool world, they just want to sell more spindles, and maybe they don't think about some of these hidden lines of value, like making your shop a bit more advanced, making your shop ahead of the curve, thinking about the untapped potential and the untapped creativity of your employees that you're unlocking by basically extending the amount of time where they don't have to tend the machine because they're working ahead of the machine.
Yep.
And so, these are all things that, as a proposal engineer, I imagine you have to kind of work through with your customers and say, "Hey, look, yes, it's not a $50,000 upgrade. It's significant, but it's really going to be, in some cases more valuable than just adding a second machine.
Yeah, I'll give you a real world example that kind of fits into that. So we've got a customer that's up in New York State, that bought a linear pallet system from us, and at the time I was in apps, wasn't in proposals, and went up there to do their training. And when I went in, his cycle time was 7 hours for one part, and I was like, "Whoa!" And this is it's a horizontal machining center, LPS 12 or 12 pallet system, 12 pallet linear system. Um, and I said, "Wow!" I said, "So did you just?" And he's got all the pallets loaded up with the same job. And I said, "So did you just want to be able to load it and keep it running all week?" And he said, "Yeah, that's what I wanted to do, and keep it running at night when we're not here." And he had redundant tooling, and he had it set up where the machine would email him or text him if it went down or threw an alarm or whatever. But he said, I want to show you where I'm really making the money." And I was kind of surprised. I was like, "Where you're really making the money?" And he said, "Yeah." He calls over the 11th pallet off the end of the pallet system, and it's a tombstone that doesn't look anything like his other jobs, and he's got different fixtures on all four sides. And he said, and I hope this person doesn't watch this because they're going to get really mad. But but he said, this customer calls me all the time at a drop of a hat, and they tell me, "I need 20 of these right now." Like, and he's like, "Right now, they need them right now." He said, "And I've always broke my setup down and done it for them." He said, "Now I've taken their fixturing, I've put it on this tombstone." He said, "They call me." He said, "And I tell them, I'm charging you an expedite fee, and this is, you're I'm gonna run more like, if you want 20, we're gonna run 30, so you don't call me again." They're like, "That's fine." And he said, "I charge them an expedite fee, I charge them a breakdown fee, I charge them a build backup fee." He said, "And what do? I call it over here, I loaded up the raw stock on the fixturing." He said, "I put it in the schedule to run after the one that's running in the machine." He said, "And then I call them the next day when I walk in and all their parts are made, I call them and say, 'Hey, we worked all night, but we got your parts. Now bring me a check.'" And he said he's got multiple customers that he does that to, where no one else can make the parts as fast as he can, and he doesn't have any breakdown or setup. He's not paying a guy that's taking a smoke break, and he's paying insurance to, and he's paying a shift premium to. The machine just does it on its own. So what's that worth to you?
Yeah, that's smart.
That's what smaller customers have got to start asking themselves. What's it worth to me?
Mhm.
And you start adding those things up, and you can justify it, or I can usually justify it for you pretty quick.
Fellas, hey, well, I got you both real quick. So I'm really trying to drill in like our work holding options at Hill and all of our shops. Got any advice?
Mike, it's as simple as RasRam.
As what?
RasRam, you've never heard of it?
I have not.
Paul?
What Nick is referring to is the 7 habits of highly effective work holding:
That makes more sense.
repeatability, accessibility, scalability, reliability, adaptability, and modularity.
If you want to find all of these principles in one catalog, check out the SMW Autoblok catalog. You can find it at smwautoblok.com.
Thanks, fellas.
Mike, Paul, was it which one of you had the shop that you visited where they just had the two machines that are just not
Oh,
running? Was it
yeah,
you,
that was
Mike?
me. Yeah,
Yeah. It reminds me of that, Mark. So
yeah.
Mike, maybe quickly just kind of recap that story, because the concept is very similar. It's like you're setting aside time, or in this case, you're setting aside a pallet.
Yeah, there wasn't there, he didn't have automation on it, but this guy does have two machines. So his whole shop was humming. Every machine's going. There were two machines just sitting there alone, kind of in a little bit of a separate space. And I asked what that was for, and the same thing. It was for that expedited work. Um, so, and they had to originally fight like scheduling those machines in because they needed spindle time, and they're sitting there, but they've kept those dedicated for that quick turn work, and they're able to charge for it appropriately, and I know it's made a big difference in his business being able to, quick response like that. Like we have open spindles to do this. We don't have to tear anything down. We don't have to, break, bust up our production schedules or anything like that.
That's great and all, but if he had automation on it, he could be actually making chips most of the
Sure.
time and then still doing those rush jobs
Yep.
when the customer demanded it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's where there's this kind of there's typically, Mark, like a progression. You see shops start, everyone starts with like a 3-axis vertical, and then maybe they get a little bit more dialed in. They add like a trunnion, a 4th-axis trunnion or something, and they're doing a little bit more complex work. And then maybe from there they upgrade to a 5-axis or a horizontal or some multitasking machines of some sort. And there's kind of this general progression we all see with how people invest. But I okay, like I'm never going to get a chance to do this. I'm pretty entrenched in the family business. But if I had the chance to start from scratch and build my own shop, I always think the first machine I would buy is like a 5-axis mill with a pallet. And guys with me, Paul, Mike, we all saw CJ
Yeah.
on stage. Like he's got I don't know how many machines, but they're all running all the time. He's kind of a one-man band in that shop he just sold. And
Yep.
like he didn't think, okay, I got to start like really simple and basic and really high touch and then advance later. He just jumped into let's kick ass today and let's make a
Yeah.
ton of money today. And there's no rule where you have to start and like build up piece by piece with your investment. But I think there's just kind of this journey that everybody follows because that's like maybe what they had in their
Well, part
trade
of it's
school or
also going
whatever.
to be access to capital, right?
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
Absolutely.
you got to be able to afford that 5-axis with a pallet loader.
Yeah, that's probably
And
one of the biggest reasons too. And Mike, stuff you talk about all the time on by the numbers. But Mark, I mean, what's your thought on like, is there a better way, or is kind of the traditional way of like how people advance through more technical equipment?
Sure. Mike took the words out of my mouth with the capital, but there's another part of that too. You've got to have the need, right? So
Mhm.
you got to have the money, and you got to have somebody that needs something from you. Having done this so long, I love to give people's examples and real world stuff that I saw happen. I was at a customer down in Texas. We took a customer into an existing customer, and they had just exactly what you're talking about, 5-axis machine, eight AWC or 8 pallet pull system
Mhm.
that's on that 5-axis machine. And the work that this shop was doing was similar to what the work that this other shop that was coming to look at what we had to offer. And it was a female owned company, and she was doing government work, like defense work. And the deadline was like, we'll say it's like 6 months, that she needed to be able to turn out. And I'm just going to use a number like 5,000 parts. With their current process, she could only do about 2,000 parts. So our salesman down there had said, hey, let's go in and look. And I want to show you what this other company is doing. And, you know, maybe this will help you, make the investment and can justify it. And she brought 3 of her shop guys with her, and we all went in. And we go in and we're talking to the shop, and then they showed us, running the parts. And what they had done is, Fifth Axis had come in and had some of their pyramid fixturing on the pallet that gave them multiple setups. Plus, you have 5-axis machining, so they were able to do like 8 or 10 ops on one setup. And her company at the time didn't have that ability to do that.
Mhm.
So she literally stood there and watched along with a couple of her guys, and you could see the look on her face, when it started turning and it was doing different angles and stuff. She turned around to one of her guys that was there, and she said, "This is the answer." Like that was what she said. She said, "This is the answer." And when I heard her say that, I thought, well, somebody's fixing to spend some money.
yeah.
Because so, but I think that, we talk. There's podcasts just like this. There's all these salespeople running around trying to sell fixturing and machines and tooling and all this stuff. I think when the rubber meets the road for customers, consumers of all of this stuff, is those moments where you say, "This is the answer," and you don't have to. You don't think it's the answer. You kind of hope it's the answer. It's the answer. So that situation, they bought 2 5-axis machines. They bought the pallet system. I don't know if fifth axis got involved or not. I don't want to. Those guys will probably be watching, and be like, "Dang it!" But that was how she answered that need, and she was able to fulfill what she needed to be able to take home that burden. So or take on that job, take that risk. But I think that's how companies look at automation and say, yes, I'm going to spend the money to make the money. And I think those are where it happens. What you can't do, we talk about all the things you can do. What you can't do is not have the capital or have almost all the capital, and then maybe I get this contract, maybe I get that contract. I would discourage anybody from doing that. But if you've got the need and you've got the money, um, one of the best piece of advice I ever got in this industry was, it's just like having a baby or trying to plan for having a baby. There's never a good time. You've just got to do it when the
I
time
just said
comes.
that to somebody last week.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on my
Yeah.
5th kid, and it's like you're never ready to get married, you're never ready to start a company,
Yep.
and you're never ready to have a baby.
Have
You just
baby. Yeah.
figure it out.
You just got to do it,
Yeah.
so, uh, and people like you guys, like Paul, Mike, Nick, I mean, you guys have been around this. I've been around this long enough to know when you're in when you're in that position to take that leap of faith, and you've also been in that position where you're like, this is not the right time.
Mhm.
And you have to make those decisions, and I respect people that do that. I also respect the heck out of the people that take that leap of faith. But yes, to answer your question, there's no right. You don't have to start small to start to be big.
Mhm.
You can, if you've got the capital and you've got the need, you can start big from the jump.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
absolutely.
we've had a lot of young entrepreneurs on this year with our Generation CNC kind of
Hmm.
theme and series.
Yep.
And what do you say, guys? It's maybe like, I don't know, 70-30, 60-40, where it's like if you build it, they will come. Like if you get the machine, the
Yeah.
work will come, or I had to buy the machine because I already had the work and I didn't know how to get it out the door. It's not always one way or the other.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
for
definitely a
sure.
mix.
So Jason's joining us for another segment with Paperless Parts. And the first time, we talked about being not being desperate, not being too thirsty for the wrong kind of work. And then the second one was all about speed, first in, first order. And that speed often creates chaos. What we're seeing with the Generation CNC entrepreneurs that we bring in is like they work really hard, they get the first customer or two, and they do a great job. Our entrepreneurs that we've had on, they all have great work ethics. They're all super passionate. What happens when you do a great job? Like you said in the last time we recorded, they tell everybody. And now you're not hungry for new opportunities. You have more than you can even handle, and that can create all sorts of chaos. So, Jason, what advice would you have for the entrepreneur who has so much opportunity, so much to quote, and so much chaos because of it?
So I'll tell you, this is an area that I always struggled in our business because
Mhm.
scaling is very different than brute force execution.
Yeah.
And you can do brute force execution to a certain amount of work. You can handle it, certain amount of revenue. But if you're trying to build a business that you can grow, and it all comes back to what's the point of building a business? Do you want to build a business so you can have a better life, so you can provide for your family? I heard one shop owner, he'd been running the business for 25 years. They were like 2 million in revenue.
Mhm.
And he's like, I feel like I built the prison. I'm the warden and I'm also trapped inside. And
Ugh.
that's what not building systems does.
Mhm.
Because if you want this amazing, really hard business that you build to then support your lifestyle so you can spend time with your family and go to your kids' events and not live to work, but
Mhm.
work so that great, now I can spend time outside of work. You can't be in a place where everything lives in your head and you're brute forcing every job.
Mhm.
And I think that the challenge for a lot of entrepreneurial people is that you just figure out how to get shit done
Mhm.
and you move really fast. So you're not really a patient. Like, I'm not patient. I don't want to sit here and design a way to make sure that other people can do it. But in the military, I think as I've gotten older, I'm turning 40 this year. It's scary shit. But
You're a year
as I've
ahead of
gotten
me, man. I don't even wanna hear about it. It's
as I've
coming.
gotten as I've gotten older though, we I looked back at the military. When I was in the military, I was like, bureaucracy, this is ridiculous. I can go so much faster and I can do all this
Mhm.
stuff. And now, as I look back, I look at it through a different lens. And I actually think that the orchestration, getting a million people to do the same thing the same way every time and well, that's
Mhm.
beautiful.
It
So,
is.
as you're building your business, as you're setting up your shop, you have to think about one, you can't have everything in disparate places.
Mhm.
Centralized data. We talk about it, paperless parts. One of the most powerful things our system does is it just centralizes the quoting process.
Yeah, 5S begins, outside of the shop too. I mean, 5S is, where do you put your data? Do you always put the same stuff in the same place? Just like, do you always put that tool back where it should go on your shadow board? It's a
It's
great point.
exactly it's exactly right. So centralize your data, centralize your processes.
Mhm.
Don't do something on a PowerPoint or an Excel spreadsheet or the back of a napkin or a piece of a cardboard box that you have laying around. It's just not repeatable.
Mm.
So while you are trying to scale your business, while you are thinking through these processes, the shops that scale the best are people that think in systems and they think about how can I get someone else doing this?
You sound like
The
Paul
f-
Van Meter right now.
he's
He's all
a
about
smart
systems.
guy.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. So you you end up in this situation where if you look across all of the sub 5 million in revenue shops, the owner is usually the bottleneck.
Mhm.
That's
Amen.
usually what's going on, and it's an unfortunate problem for both them and for the business because you don't have a system in place where you can trust someone else to do it. And all it just comes back to trust and guardrails,
Mhm.
right? So I can trust you a lot more with your estimating process if I have guardrails in place that say, if a part looks like X, you better call me.
Mhm.
Like, tap me in. If I'm seeing, datum structure that's gonna be too complicated, or I'm looking at a part that's gonna be, gonna maybe need outside processes or grind, tag me in
I
so
think
that I
that's
can
such a good
help you.
point with paperless parts. I think when people hear what your business does, they just think, okay, you upload drawings and it tells you what they cost, which, it does help with that. But it also
Yeah.
helps flag things that you might not have seen at your first glance, and kind of triage that to these are the jobs we really need that owner or that senior level person to take a look at, and see if we should take it or not. Some of them are just easy. We've done a million of them. We're ready to rock. But I do like that about how it can kind of flag things, and kind of bring stuff to the surface and surface issues that need to get addressed at a higher level.
So many people want instant, fast quoting, like, that's what they want, and what
Hmm.
they end up realizing after working with us for a couple of years, that's a lot of sizzle, and it's great. It does it. It works fast. You can get pricing out really, really quick. You can build rules, you can build automation, it's amazing. But the stake that makes your business valuable is a secure, centralized system that builds a process around something that was probably chaotic when you first started that someone else can buy. Our customers love us because their shop is worth a hell of a lot more money when they use paperless parts. Because when private equity comes in to roll you up, are you going to get a 4? Are you going to get a 7? Are you going to get like a 12
Hmm.
on your EBITDA? And
Yeah.
that's really going to come back to how much work do they have to do to clean up your mess?
Yeah, man, thank you so
And
much for bringing that up to us. And you just sounded like Paul earlier. Now you sound like Mike. And thank you for always
I try
bringing.
to channel, I'll
Yeah.
channel the people.
Yeah, just don't sound like me, okay? Because you might sound like a little too much sizzle and not enough steak sometimes. That's what happens when you sound like the sales and marketing guy. But Jason, thank you so much for joining, and let the audience know how they can connect with Paperless Parts or connect with you if they have questions.
Yeah, come check out our website, paperlessparts.com. We've got a ton of content on there, a lot of videos, a lot of articles. Request a demo. We're happy to show you what paperless parts looks like. We'll also walk through the system using part files and RFQs that you've seen. The goal is expectation management, which is what everybody should be doing with their customers as well. So come in, check it out. We're happy to have a conversation with you. If we could be helpful, we'd love to do it. My email is jason@paperlessparts.com. So tag me if I can be helpful also.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining.
Mark, outside of, I mean, you touched on a few things there, but when you look at, automation or, even just advanced machine, looking at 5 axis, something like that, what we talked about reasons why, we've talked about a few reasons why not, but what do you see what have you seen as, like, maybe some of the biggest mistakes, though? Like, where someone just maybe they weren't ready and whatever the case might be.
Sure. Um, there's a customer that we have, I won't get too specific about where they are, but, um, they were in the defense market, and they bought 3 horizontals and 3 pallet systems all chained together. It's a really fantastic system. Um, COVID hit, and, they were had a lot of downtime on those spindles. So I think the one mistake that they made there was they were planning on doing a whole lot in a short amount of time, and the rug kinda got pulled out from
Mhm.
underneath them.
Sure.
So I think, and gosh, it's a balance. Like our business owners, man, if I can just stop for a second and say business owners that are in the machine tool world, you guys are like I said, you guys are the heroes. I don't think I have the balls sometimes to do what some of these guys do and the risks that they take. It
Mhm.
is a risk, but I think trying to do too much at once is a is what I see is probably the biggest thing. What they should have done was bought one machine, one pallet system, and said, if we can't fill this sucker up, we'll get a second one and we'll
Yeah.
add to it and we'll build. But at the time, before COVID hit, they had the demand. I'm talking about these 2 things. They had the demand was there, and then it wasn't. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
if they had started small, it wouldn't have hurt as bad. So, and I say start small. If they had just said, "Hey, if we're just, if we're just balls to the wall in 6 months, we'll just expand it." And we as DN Solutions, we have the ability to do that for them. If they just said, "Hey, we've got to expand this thing," it's no problem. We'll have it here in 3, 4, or 5 months, and we'll a machine and expansion rack, and we'll keep moving.
Yeah,
Um,
that's such a great point too when people are, selecting a vendor on a machine or, if you think you're gonna expand, like, so I have a similar position right now where, I likely need 1 new machine, and then depending on a few the way this particular project could go, might need 3 depending
mm,
on how some POs hit. Well, I'm
Yep.
not shopping for 3.
right,
Mhm.
that's
I'm
right.
I'm shopping for 1, but with the consideration too of, like, what's that lead time to add the 2nd and the 3rd if those things hit
Mhm.
Yep.
properly,
Yeah,
right?
that's so important. If you were running one shift 8 hours a day and you were getting 8 hours of utilization,
Yeah,
you are not at 100% utilization. You are at 33% utilization,
That's
right?
correct. That's
Right. And,
100% correct.
and so it's like these machines can work 24/7. And I think far too often people look at like utilization from the lens of like when the people are there instead of like
yeah,
how much can the machine work. And to your point, Mike, if you bought the one machine and you got 8 hours of attended time, and then
right,
maybe you got some pallets on that. That's a horizontal. I know you're looking for,
yeah,
right? You got some pallets on the horizontal. Okay, now maybe you get to 20 plus hours a day. Great, and you still don't have enough. Okay, next machine
right.
with the pallet system, then third machine with the pallet system. But I think Mark's advice is sage there. Like, don't just buy $6 million of equipment because you never know unless you got like a huge pipeline of a diverse group of customers.
Or or a huge bank account for several months of payments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I will tell you a little bit about what he did to pivot. He was making defense parts for private people. He kind of pivoted and made his own brand and
Nice.
invested in material and started making his own parts,
Mm.
and stuff that had his own name on it. And they were able to kind of weather the storm, and they did. They kind of made it out on the other side, but he definitely had to pivot.
And
So
that back to what you said about this is the toughest industry. I mean, you take massive risks. You have to be super creative. You have to make these crazy pivots because the world changes so fast, and that's why we love our manufacturing leaders.
I
yep.
think, along these topics too, it reminds me, I think, one of the things I heard a lot at Toolpath Summit last week, and I think we're talking about here. I'm so glad too to hear the conversation changing around automation from, you know, the fear of like your workers being replaced, right?
Mhm.
Or them having that fear. And to now it's like, no, we're just filling the gap that we can't fill with people anyway,
Yep.
Mhm.
right? Like you mentioned it earlier, Mark. Like you can't. I mean, great, have two machines and nobody, or your post last week too, Nick. Right? It's like who's going to run them though?
Right.
And the things we're talking about now is just making the people we have more productive, and which really in turn upskills them and makes them more valuable. Right?
And
And lets them work on things that are probably more enjoyable than sitting there
Absolutely.
pressing the
Absolutely.
button and loading a vise every 5 minutes.
like upskilling someone else, Paul, right? Like if how
Absolutely.
often do you have like a young kind of up and coming intern, apprentice, whatever, and all of the best people at the company are too busy to really mentor that person? Well, if
Right.
you don't have to tend the machine every 30 minutes, you can
Mhm.
really focus your time on replacing yourself with more human talent too. So,
Sure.
and that's another thing I don't think people consider enough is like, yeah, we got to get people in this industry, but then you need to like really carve out and create margin to spend time on those people and get them up to speed and show them how to run three machines at the same time with automation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
To Nick, to your point on that, this is what I've told. Uh, and I was having a conversation last week and talking about it. Companies always talk about we need, right? You go on any of their postings in their careers. I need. Well, you need to invest in the people that you have.
Mhm.
And some, this is a double edged sword. Um, you invest in them, they get better. They start going doing things amazingly, right? Like they start advancing. Then all of a sudden you're like, hey, just like with me, we don't need you to do apps anymore. You come do proposals, So all of a sudden that person's off the floor from being your best programmer or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's a lot of companies out there that say, well, I just need someone to come in off the street and do this for me. And I'm kind of in the same boat with you. Like, why don't you take the people you've got that do show up to work on time that you can trust and teach them a little bit more. You don't teach them a lot, teach them a little bit more.
Mhm.
And I don't know, for
1% better every day, you know?
absolutely, and if you just crack their brain open just a little bit and let a little bit of that light in
I've
there, a
wanted to
lot
do
of
that.
times. But not that way, Mike.
Oh,
I
sorry.
think you're one of my former bosses. But but if
Uh,
you kinda open their eyes a little bit to what's possible,
yeah.
man, I've seen it untold amount of times where people just get a little bit of an opportunity, and it's like, "Oh, wow, I can do this,"
Yeah,
and
maybe
then the
that's the theme is this untapped potential, not just with your equipment and your spindle utilization, but with the people running it as well.
Mhm.
Sure.
Those are so much more connected than people realize.
sure.
And I think part of that has to be supporting those people through the transition of learning it and becoming comfortable with it and realizing that it does make their work life better and they don't need to be afraid of it. And it's okay to be concerned about, I don't know how this thing works. It's much more complicated than my VMC. But when you support them through that process, I mean, it's something we face every day. Uh, the other side of that is a much better place, and they are genuinely much happier doing that new work that's more interesting and
Sure.
less repetitive and uses the creative side of their brain more often. And um, but yeah, that journey across there and change management has got to be an important element of making that successful.
Absolutely, and that they also go hand in hand with if you're gonna get that more advanced equipment, your most advanced guy in the shop has gotta be the guy to handle that piece of equipment, right? So if we're gonna go to that 5-axis machine, or we're gonna go to a mill turn, or, we're gonna go to, something that's, 5-axis horizontal maybe, and we get crazy. Um, your top guy is probably gonna be the guy doing that, so whatever he's doing right now, somebody below him has gotta come up and
Mhm.
work on that machine. So, so it all kind of fits together, and I think, Mike, you said it best, like, y you're never gonna replace every if you take any machine shop that's got 20 people working in it, we'll just say it's got 20 employees, those employees are not gonna disappear with automation. They're not,
No.
because there's too many other things, and somebody has to run the automation, for God's sakes. Like,
Mhm.
it does run itself, but someone has to set it up, someone has to maintain it.
I've been
So
saying automation is not automatic.
No, it's not automatic.
Like
No.
that's like a new little tagline I've been throwing out there because it's like,
I like that a lot,
yeah,
actually.
it's
That's
not
really
like some
good.
magic.
Yeah,
It
it's
takes a
not a
different skill set.
yeah, and AI is not gonna take that job. Like, AI is not gonna run automation.
Mhm.
It's not gonna it's not gonna set your parts up. It's not gonna do your fixturing. It's not. So,
Mhm.
someone's gotta do that. Someone has to be that guy, so or that girl, and there's a lot of those spots that are open.
If you're looking to increase your spindle uptime without adding any headcount, check out the Hennig WorkFlow automation system. I've seen it. I love it. It's a compact, automated pallet delivery solution that lets you work ahead of your machine so your shop never stops. You can load up to 40 pallets with material, fixtures, programs, and just let the workflow cook. A Henning workflow is designed for high mix machining, works with a wide range of machines, and even with a 125-pound payload on top of a 300 millimeter pallet, yet still takes up less space than most competitors' pallet automation system. That means more production, fewer manual changeovers, really just a practical path to high profit, lights out machining. Learn more about Hennig Workflow by visiting hennigworldwide.com/workflow.
Mark, so this has been so good, and to kind of close just the last thing, this little topic here. You know, we had Yuto Matsura of Matsura on earlier this year, and he
Mhm,
said that about 85% of their 5-axis mills come with automation. And I
mhm.
was like, I thought it would be a lot, but that's really high. And of course, that number increases over time. And I'll ask you, a different builder, are you seeing some like machines prepped and coming in ready for automation more than before? Is that a theme with you guys as well? I would imagine so, but maybe you could
Sure.
speak to that.
No, it's a great question. So what we started doing, our one of our product managers, guy named Ryan Matz. Ryan was a big he's one of the best 5-axis programmers I know. So shout out to Ryan.
Yeah.
But Ryan went to the factory and said, "Hey, we've got to start we're selling so many pallet systems after the customer buys the 5-axis machine. Let's just go ahead and build them, ready to accept the pallet system instead of having to have a whole kit that has to come in and service has to come in and put it all. So now all of our five DBF 4000s and DBF 5000s, you can buy them prepped. You can buy them standalone. You don't have to buy them prepped, but we bring them in. We have stock of those machines sitting in the warehouse that are prepped for AWCs for pallet systems, and you can order it that way as well. So, and we're starting to get requests for horizontals to be prepped for a pallet system later on down the road. That's starting to become a request as well. So yes, and I would agree 100% that we are either selling a prep machine 80-85% of the time, or we're selling a 5-axis machine with a pallet system.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah, I
just a
know, Nick, from a, someone that buys machines standpoint, I know like every machine I've bought since I bought Hill anyway, we bought it. We went ahead and brought it in with every automation ready feature you could get, even if we didn't know if we'll ever automate it, right? But
Hmm.
kind of under the same
yep,
premise, it's like, I mean, I'd rather spend $20,000 on those options now than retrofit for $75,000,
yep.
right?
Mhm.
And
Or
I
whatever the numbers are.
well, Mike, to your point, I tell people every day, nothing gets cheaper, right?
Right,
Yeah.
It
Right.
just doesn't. It just
Yeah.
doesn't. That's not at DN, that's everywhere.
right,
Nothing gets cheaper. So if you go ahead and buy that machine in 2026, prepped, ready to go, and at the end of 2027, you're like, hey man, like next year's looking hot. We've got to do something. That machine said it's ready to go. All you
right,
got to do is go make the capital expenditure on the pallet system, and
right.
it's plug and play and go.
Yeah.
So
Well, as we close here, I think that the like building block strategy of okay, buy a machine that's prepped with automation, add automation before you buy three more automated machines, but
Yeah,
kind of
Mhm.
modularly assemble your company makes a lot of sense, both financially and from a business performance perspective, operationally as well. So, um, thank you for the time, Mark, and thank you for the advice.
absolutely.
And am I going to see you on the 5th?
You'll see me there. I'm
Yeah.
actually, one of our dealers actually contacted me today. They must know how great of a golfer I am, so they wanted me to play golf with them, that out on the end of the open house. But, but yes, I'll be there on the 5th. I'll be at IMTS. I'll be in the booth at IMTS as well this year. So,
By the way, breaking news. I'll be there on the 5th too now, Nick.
well, yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
great.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
awesome. Cool. Yeah, super happy to
Fantastic.
have you. So, yeah, what are we talking about, guys? What's on the 5th? Let's plug it here.
So DN has their open house. And I should know. Oh, I'm looking at it right here. So it's the 5th and actually the 6th, I believe.
Yeah.
It's Tuesday and Wednesday. We have open house. I believe it starts at, I should know this, like 9 a.m., goes to like 5 p.m. There'll probably be adult beverages there after like 2 o'clock. So that always seems to, for some reason in our industry, just alcohol and machines. And I always laugh about that. I'm always like, yeah, because
combo.
every shop I've worked at, been like, oh, let me restart a job here 2 beers deep. So
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to seeing you, and I'm looking forward to showing you how we're partnered with DN with the workflow automation system that'll be on display there too. So
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
yeah, it'll be
I know
super fun.
it's been a little bit. I know we were talking about it last open house. So
Yeah, it's finally here. So
good.
thank you so much for joining and helping us equip and inspire the metalworking nation. And guys, I think the theme is today, like, if you're not utilizing your talent, if you're not utilizing your machines, you're not making chips.
And if you're not making chips,
You're not making money.
Bam.
bam.